Hey guys, Victor here, coming to you with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing Runick Lightsworn, which is one of many Runick combo decks that's essentially functioning to deck out your opponent while also constantly drawing you 3 cards per turn minimum, and as if that wasn't enough, you can essentially just full combo to set up some pretty nasty boards that your opponent's going to have like a lot of difficulty breaking through. However, if I'm being honest, of all the Lightsworn combo decks, this one is probably like on the lower end, as it's essentially just like a inferior version of the Runick Whitewood deck. But even so, it's still a lot of fun to play, and with that, we can just jump straight into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and we're of course going to be playing 3 Weiss Lightsworn Archfiend. So of all the Lightsworn monsters in the deck, this one is probably the most important, as it's a level 4 tuner, which means that it allows you to use your Runick fusion monsters just to climb into higher synchros, exceeds, link plays, whatever you may happen to need. And you know, that's just like a really valuable asset to have. And it doesn't matter if you don't have a Lightsworn monster or spell or trap in your hand to stack in order to activate its effect to special summon itself. Just being able to have access to this card in general is just invaluable. And as for its other effects, obviously they help you unbreak your hand by taking Wulfs and Felices, putting them on top, special summoning itself, and then milling 2. And then if it's milled to the graveyard, you're able to special summon any Lightsworn except for Weiss from your graveyard. So yeah, this card, the entire deck essentially revolves around you hopefully having access to Weiss in some shape or form. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you have to normal or special summoning it, just having access to it is just fantastic. Then for the other 3 ofs, we're playing 3 Lightsworn Dragonling. This card, it's still really strong, but unlike Weiss, it doesn't have as much synergy with the Runick engine itself. It's basically self-contained into the Lightsworn engine for the most part. There are a couple of really cute plays that you can make using the Runick engine, but for the most part, this is just there to help you get access to your to your Lightsworn portion of the deck as often as possible. And then for the final 3 up, we're playing 3 Wulf Lightsworn Beast. It's Wulf. When you mill it, it special summons itself. However, you have to be a little bit cautious when it comes to Wulf, and to a lesser extent Felis, because they're essentially the same card. As when it comes to the Runick engine, you're typically going to try to draw, right? That's the entire purpose. You're essentially drawing 3 free cards every single turn. So the possibility of drawing a Wulf or a Felis is honestly pretty high. And that's one of like the main cases where Weiss just becomes phenomenal, because if you draw them together, it's fine. You just take one, stack it on top, and then you continue to combo off. But the breaks that Felis and Wulf provide you with are honestly one of the main reasons why I feel that this is inferior to the Runick Whitewood variant, just because that deck doesn't play as many like awful breaks as this deck, and these are going to be like the main 4 ones. But yeah, there's no worse feeling in the world than opening a Wulf or a Felis and not being able to do anything besides maybe discard it at most. So yeah, 3-1, perfectly fine. I never found myself wanting the second Felis, but there are some like just you can make like a justification for playing like 2-2 or 3-3 even, but I think 3-1 is perfectly fine. And then for the final Lightsworn monster, we're playing 1 Raiden Hand of the Lightsworn. This is essentially going to be the only actual normal summon in the deck. What it does, during your main phase, you get to mill 2 cards. During the end phase, you mill 2 more. The end phase effect is essentially never going to happen, just because you're always going to do something with it, whether you're synchro summoning with it, linking it off, exceed summoning with it, whatever. But yeah, 1 Raiden, perfectly fine. And then that's it for the Lightsworn portion, but we do play a couple of other monsters in the main deck, being the Bystial engine. So we have the 3 Bystial Lubellion, the 1 Bystial Magnamhut, the 1 Bystial druiswurm, and the 1 Bystial Baldrake. The Bystials themselves already have a lot of synergy with the Lightsworns, as they're all light, so that means you can use these as free extenders to synchro climb into level 10 monsters, especially when it comes to like Bystial Dis Pater, for example. But there also are like a couple of other synergies as well with like the Runick engine itself, right? As we do play the Branded Regain spell, spoiler alert, and Branded Regained plus like Bystials and Runicks is just, things get out of hand really quickly, right? As with the Runick spells and traps, because there are so many light and dark monsters in the grave, or like not in the grave, but in the game currently, you're able to take one of those, stack them on top of the, or to the bottom of the deck, draw a card, and then like you just continuously get like +1s, whatever. And the resiliency that cards like Branded Regain give you by allowing you to special summon back your Baldrakes, your druiswurms, or whatever, when your opponent decides to play the game, yeah, things things literally spiral out of control for your opponent when you combine all three of these engines together. So I feel like if you want to play Runick with Lightsworn, you should be including the Bystials into it. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck. Now, I know I said this would be the spell and trap portion of the video, but there's going to be no traps. It's literally all spells from this point on, just because the Runick engine takes up so many slots, as we're essentially just going to be maxing out on all of them, right? So since we're maxing out on all of them, we're going to be playing 3 Runick Tip, 3 Flashing Fire, 3 Freezing Curses, 3 Destructions, and 3 Slumbers. You got to max out on all the good ones. Slumber is probably it is without a doubt the weakest of the bunch, but you want to have as many names as possible just because you want to be able to potentially mill out your opponent's deck, or just continuously like summon out your fusion monsters to be able to climb into your synchros or exceeds or whatever. So that's why I wanted to max out on these, and that's not the extent either. So we still play the other 2 one-ofs, being like the one of Smiting Storm and the one of Dispelling, just because, like I said, the names are super important. As long as you always have a Runick spell in your hand, you can always attempt to at least try and draw 3 to just dig in deeper to your engine to actually draw the good cards. And as far as like the Runick spells go, they're basically all 1-for-1 trades that, if your opponent decides not to stop, end up costing them key pieces of their deck, as they all have additional effects to banish a certain amount of cards from the top of your opponent's deck. So yeah, it's basically like a race to grind out your opponent's resources, but unlike with like the Runick stun variants, we can also combo off and make it so that our opponents essentially start with no cards eventually, and once they are like down to like their last resources, we can just switch all our monsters to attack position and end the game right then and there. But Runicks as a whole are honestly just like infuriating to deal with, especially when you back it up with strong monsters in the form of like the Lightsworn cards and the Bystial cards. So yeah, these cards are just insane. And then obviously, if we're playing the Runick spells, we're playing the Runick Fountain. So you got to play 2 of those just to recycle your resources and draw, because this card is beyond ignorant. That's it for the Runick spells. And then for the other spell cards we play, we're playing 3 Charge of the Light Brigade. You mill 3 out of Lightsworn card. Pretty straightforward. And then for the final one, the 1 Branded Regain that was mentioned previously in the video. As whether you're returning your cards or your opponent's cards back to the bottom of the deck to draw a card is invaluable. Being able to bring back your Bystial monsters from the graveyard, such as like Dis Pater, your Baldrakes, druiswurm, Magnamhut, whatever. This card, it's just insane. And with that, that's the main deck, and now we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now, when it comes to the extra deck, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to fit everything in, as it's not like we were lacking spaces. It's more just so I didn't really know what was like actually good. But even so, this is ultimately what I decided on. We're going to be playing 2 Hugin the Runick Wings. Obviously, when you summon this card, you discard a card, and then you're able to search out your fountains. 2 Geri the Runick Fangs. This card allows you to get back your Runick Fountains from your graveyard, which is probably going to happen a little bit more frequently because this is partially a Lightsworn deck. And, you know, Lightsworns like to mill, so, you know, you can just get back your Fountains from your graveyard, whether you mill them or you send them to the grave manually or whatever. And then for the final Runick Fusion, we're playing 1 Munin the Runick Wings. This is literally just a time card because this deck does take a while to play, so it's just important to have something like Munin in the extra deck, just in case. Especially because it's just like the nature of the Runick deck, right? Sometimes you have to deck your opponent out, and those games take forever. So for games 2 and 3, sometimes you just need 1,000 life points, and as a result, Munin will come up eventually. Then for the Exceed monsters, we're just playing the 1 number 41 bagooska to try and like maybe survive a turn if we end up getting hit by Droll or Shifter, especially Droll and Lockbird, because Droll just demolishes this deck entirely. We play the 1 Minerva, the Exalted Lightsworn, to mill 3, potentially draw if we mill any Lightsworns, and that's it for the Exceeds. And then we play a couple of Links, and by a couple I mean just 2, being the IP Masquerena and the SP Little Knight. Yeah, good cards are good. And then for the Synchro monsters, which are probably going to be like the most important monsters in the deck, we're playing 1 Coral Dragon. We're not playing the, I believe it's called like Tri-Edge Master, the other level 6 Synchro. We just don't really make it all that often, at least in this specific, the way that I play it. I feel like Coral Dragon is more than enough, as it takes 2 monsters. It's a level 6. You just summon your Hugins with like a Raiden or a Weiss. You go into this, and then it has the added benefit of being a Synchro tuner as well. So this is like one of the few instances where the Runick engine allows you to combo off with your Lightsworn Dragonling, right? As you can Synchro your Coral Dragon with your Dragonling, and they're both dragons, which means that you can make Dis Pater that way if you're not making it the normal way, which is typically like a Bystial plus a level 4 monster. But yeah, this card is phenomenal, and as if that wasn't good enough, when it's sent to the graveyard, you get to draw another card. So another consistency piece, essentially. Then we just play a bunch of really good synchro monsters as well to accompany that one, being the Minerva, the Athenian Lightsworn. It literally just sends more Lightsworn monsters and mills cards to give you access to your engine. The Psy-framelord Omega, which this card is honestly beyond ignorant, being able to take an opponent's hand apart, and then because we play cards like Bystial Dis Pater, we can bring back the Omega to rip a second card from our opponent's hand. Its recursion effect as well, being able to recycle cards during the standby phase back to by putting a banished card back into the graveyard, is also really good at helping you get back key pieces that were thought to be lost, and that if you happen to have Branded Regained out, if you hit a dark or light monster, you know, it's essentially another free draw, as you just take the monster that you banished with Omega, put it to the bottom, draw a card. So yeah, this card, it gets so many uses out of this deck. Then for the final level 8, we're playing one Scarlight Red Dragon archfiend. I didn't know what I wanted this one to be, if I'm being honest. I just included Scarlight because it's a level 8 Dark Dragon, which means that you can use it if your hand is pretty weak to summon out Bystial Lubellion from your graveyard. But it's also, I guess, a time card, as you can destroy every other special summon monster to burn for 500. So it's fine. We don't really go into it. Hopefully we don't have to go into it, but there is some uses in the form of the Lubellion play that I mentioned. And then for the level 10 synchros, we play Chaos Angel, play a lot of darks, we play a lot of lights. Chaos Angel's a no-brainer, and Bystial Dis Pater, probably the most broken synchro in the extra deck. It brings back banished monsters, your banished monsters. It negates monster effects or destroys them depending on what kind of banished card you put back to the deck. Yeah, this card, it's just so good. And with that, that's the Runick Lightsworn deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!